Oh, when I slipped in gorilla poop and
Yes.
couldn't get up and needed help. That that might be, that is up there.
Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Chris.
I'm Kat.
And this is episode number 199.
I can't believe we're about to bust into the 200s.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me.
It is, yeah. Let's save a bit of reflection for if we make it to 200.
Which we're recording later today. So I hope so. Yeah. So, anything new since we last recorded?
Well, yes. We spent time with family, which was very nice. We went to Stan Hewitt here in Northeast Ohio, which is this old mansion from the Sieberlein family back in like when the days of when Akron was like the rubber capital and all of that. And it's really pretty. They always decorate it very nicely for Christmas. So we did that. We went out to dinner last night. It was a very nice evening.
Yes. Oh, fun fact. That's where AA was found or began. Did you know that?
Why is that a fun fact?
Well, I don't know.
At that house?
Yeah.
By that family?
It was.
How do you know this?
Because I wrote about it on Cleveland Traveler, and I was like researching like facts about the house, and
AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, started at that house.
Yes.
With that family, or
there was like a person of that family that would meet with someone else to discuss their like drinking problems, and then it kind of like snowballed into an actual like organization.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
It is.
Man.
So, I mean, I guess that's like it's good. It's
what a mood lifter.
Helped people. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, but it's very beautifully decorated at Christmas. It's kind of like the Biltmore, but like a smaller version, but still a massive house.
Yeah. Huge.
Yes. Best gingerbread cookies around. I love their gingerbread cookies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, that happened. And then, Argentina won the World Cup.
I know. But you still lost the bracket challenge.
So I actually miscalculated.
No, that is so convenient for you. I'm sorry.
We accidentally threw the brackets out, but
Christopher claims that he miscalculated and that I both have to pay for our date night because I lost the points challenge, but also make a 3-course Argentinian meal.
No, I'm just kidding. I know that I lost the bracket.
I was going to say, you knew you lost the bracket before the final game.
Yeah, I will also be honest with you. I mean, I love French food, and I'm sure that you have a few French dishes that made your list.
Especially as we were getting closer, I definitely had some French dishes that I was going to request if they won. But
yes, but I'm pretty pumped to make some Argentinian food. Any
ideas?
No, and I think I just come up with it. So
I wouldn't mind some empanadas.
Okay, well, we'll see what me, myself, and I think about that.
What desserts do they have? I like those cookies, those little tres leche or
those
dulce
are good.
de leche cookies. Oh,
alrighty.
That's gonna be. I'm excited for you to make those.
I will not be making those. No, I am excited to do some research, and we'll have to pick a night, and we'll
have to get some wine too, some like Malbec or something.
That works.
Yeah.
What was your highlight from? I think we recorded last Monday, so it's been a week. What was your highlight over the past week?
I mean, I would definitely say going to Stan Hewitt and spending the day with your family. That was a lot of fun. Went and saw the Christmas lights in the area, went to dinner, all that stuff.
I agree. That was the highlight for me as well. Just a great day, great kind of holiday spirit lifter there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, all is well. Anything else you want to chat about before we... This is always an episode that I look forward to. But if you have any other updates.
No. I always look forward to this one and then the one after. I look forward to all the year in review episodes.
Yeah. So this is our second episode of our 2022 year in review series. In the last one, which was the first episode in the series, we talked all about our stats and shout outs. That was episode number 198. So miles earned, miles burned,
trips we took,
like
days traveled.
Yeah. All of the more statistical kind of analyses of the past year of travel, as well as some shout outs to a few favorites. This episode 199, we are going to do our top 5 travel experiences of the year, as well as our top 5 most embarrassing moments.
Yep.
And each of these are individualized here. And then our next episode 200, is going to be our top 5 food and our top 5 drink that we had while traveling during the year. So do you want to start with experiences?
Yeah. Are we going to do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
I would start with 5 and go up to 1. So
Okay.
What was your 5th best travel Well, first of all, actually, let me ask you this question. How many countries are represented in your top 5?
My top 5 are 3 countries.
Okay.
What about you?
I have 4 countries in my top 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your 5th best travel experience?
Okay. What about some honorable mentions? Do you want to do those first, or?
There are no honorable mentions.
There are honorable
mentions. This is a
Of
top
course
5.
there are.
Top 5 travel experiences.
Okay, and honorable mentions.
Okay, I have 1, or I have 2 that I was actually like
Let's
thinking
do those
about going
afterward.
back and forth. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. All right, number 5 for me was the day that we were in Provence, my sister and I, and we drove through the Luberon villages, the villages of the Luberon. So we have a whole podcast episode about that, but we started out driving to Senanac Abbey, then we went to Gourds, then Roussillon, then Apt, or I think Apt, then Roussillon, and saw the ochre path there, which was beautiful. Went to the farmer's market in Apt. We went to Le Marron and Cucuron, and all these great things. We stopped at a couple wineries and vineyards, saw some beautiful chateaus on the way, and just a very beautiful day. Even without the lavender fields, it's just such a beautiful area and hilly area of France. And all the villages look so cute and adorable. It was just a really, really fun day getting to drive through all these smaller towns and villages and go to a local market. And it's just really fun. So
That
shout
sounds
out
nice.
to that. That was my number 5. What
That
about
sounds
you?
very nice. My number 5 was the day that we spent in Kibale National Park in Uganda. And this was the day that we trekked with chimpanzees.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool. It was raining a little bit, so they were a lot of them were up in the trees, but some were on the ground, and it was just really neat to see the almost like the human-like characteristics, right? Like they were visibly upset that it was raining. They were it was you could definitely tell that it was affecting them, and it was just one of those things, like when you share like eye contact. It was really cool. It's going to be something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That was a really, really amazing experience getting to see that. That's our closest DNA relative, which was really neat. All right, number 4. My number 4 is a very recent one in France again. That is going to the Christmas market in Aubernay. And I think a huge part of this experience is that we did go during the week and during the day. So it wasn't crowded at all. It is the most charming little village. So cute. There's a little Ferris wheel in the town center and all these Christmas markets around it. We went inside this church that had nativity scenes from around the world. And just beautiful. Like, I mean, the markets themselves were beautiful. I had some fantastic food there. And it was just really, really fun getting to walk around this gingerbread-like town that's all decorated. There's lights everywhere. There's a beautiful Christmas tree in the city center. And I think my parents and I all agreed that that was definitely the best market we went to the whole trip, was going to Aubernay and just walking around this little town and going to all these markets and trying lots of wonderful little foods. Bought some the pâtes à tartiner, so the chocolate spreads. I bought those there. And yeah, I think that was just a really good time. We also found out that Christmas markets there. Just they serve the ones in the Alsace will serve local wine and beer from local breweries too. So we had some of that and tried that there too. But Aubernay was just an endlessly charming town, and I'm really glad we got to experience that while we were in the Alsace. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is the Vatican Museums, and more specifically, the Sistine Chapel. I was blown away by the Vatican Museums. Mm-hmm. I really was. And especially the fact that our guide, who was just fantastic, kept telling us, look, we have, just scratched the surface. Mm-hmm. Right? I think we did a 3-hour tour.
Yeah, and she was an art history person, and
yes.
It was fantastic.
And she said that the longest tour that she will do is 5 hours, just because, even for the most devoted art historians, mm-hmm. she was it just gets so overwhelming because you're looking down at the floor, at the tile work, you're looking at the walls, you're looking at the ceiling, you're looking everywhere. But the Sistine Chapel for me was incredible.
We mean all of the Vatican museums. There's a lot to see.
Yes.
And then the Sistine Chapel, you're probably in there for 10 to 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. It really was.
She did a great job explaining, especially the roof tile work and everything before we went in there, because you're not allowed to talk in the Sistine Chapel area.
Yes. And I was really happy that you weren't allowed to talk. Not you specifically, but people. It was such an immersive experience that it was nice to kind of be able to contemplate and view this and really appreciate it in, I'll say, relative silence. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was something that when I was thinking about this list, I was like, oh man, it's hard to rank a lot of things on this list because it's not it's not one for one in types of experiences, but that one blew me away.
Yeah, for sure. Really great to do that. And I think what's surprising about the Sistine Chapel, all the Vatican museums, was that it's not just old Renaissance art. I mean, they even had modern art exhibits and all of that stuff too. Number 3 for me was in Kenya. And it was the day that we were out on safari, and it was raining. We weren't sure we were gonna see much, and all of a sudden we see a leopard that's trying to eat her mongoose dinner, and then she had to chase off a jackal. We have this in our whole Masai Mara episode too, but chased off a jackal, then she takes her kill into the tree, and then a lion comes around, a female lioness comes around, and she is hissing at this lion, and it's a little standoff where they're just staring each other down, and this poor leopard was just trying to eat her dinner, and then watching the lion try to figure out what to do, and then she started walking towards these elephants, and we spent maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours there
without moving
just to watch all of this go down, and it was just absolutely incredible to see what all happens in the Masai Mara, all these interactions with the animals. And I mean, you saw 3 of the big 5 just right there, and just a lot of action between the jackal and the leopard and the lion and the lion and the elephants that were mad that the lion got a little too close. All kinds of stuff. It was a very action-packed drive, and not even drive, because we just sat there for an hour and a half and watched all of that because it was so much happening.
Yeah, yeah. Now it is interesting because we may have approached our listings differently, but I'll let you know if that's true here in a moment. Okay. My number 3 was this was a 2-day experience, but it was a day in Barbaresco followed by a day in Barolo. Mm-hmm. The villages, the castles, and quite frankly, the wine. 2 of my favorite wine regions in the world, and to be able to tour them back to back was just incredible. Mm-hmm. Some of the prettiest wine country I have ever seen. Some of the absolute best wine I have ever had in my life. I'm sure that there are a few that are going to make it into my top 5 drinks that we'll be chatting about next episode. But just kind of the pace of the whole of that whole time as well, just going all around the Piedmont area. Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely stunning.
It
All
was.
the castles and hilltop towns.
Yeah, and just really being able to appreciate a lot of the local winemakers in both Barbaresco and Barolo. That was a pretty special start to that trip to Italy.
And I will say, I still love the moment when we were at the first winery and it was a father and a son just quickly arguing back and forth in Italian as we're sitting across the table during our tasting, drinking it. And I just felt like we were at their kitchen table.
Yeah, it was very
didn't
chill.
understand anything, but it was really cool to see. It was just like a real moment in Italy that was really cool.
It was.
Yeah.
What is your number 2 experience?
My number 2, I can almost guarantee, is your number 1 experience.
Okay.
This is in Uganda, and it is when we were in Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, and we did the gorilla trek to the Mukiza family in the Ruhija sector of the park. I loved where we stayed. We stayed in the Bahama sector. We did do a hike the day before, and then we did our gorilla trek the second day, and that was just such an incredible experience. We hiked about 2 hours to get there. We spent an hour there, and then hiked about 2 hours to get back, and the hour with the gorillas was it was so cool. It was really neat to watch all of them, but the babies obviously were so cute and they were running all over the place. We had to keep backing up because they kept wanting to get a little closer. They're a little bit more curious. Watch them climb all over the trees and each other and wrestling. And it was just really, really cool to watch. And see a lot of moments too between the adults and the babies, and how similar it is. They were exhausted. The kids are running around everywhere. It was a very relatable moment. But just the whole gorilla trek in general was such a life, just a bucket list experience that I'm very grateful we got to go on this year. What's your number 2?
I agree. My number 2 is the Masai Mara National Reserve in Kenya. Now, again,
just in general,
I mean, that was an experience, so that's why I said
cheating.
think. Well, so this is kind of what I'm thinking of, right? Is obviously the game drive that you mentioned earlier. My bet is that you have the hot air balloon ride as your number 1. Is that right?
Spoilers.
You also spoiled my number 1. But the Masai Mara was incredible. Mm-hmm. When you hear the words African safari, this is what you're thinking.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. It's, vast savanna landscape as far as the eye can see.
Animals dotted everywhere.
Yes, everywhere. I mean, if you spin around and go 360, you are going to see so many animals just in that one turn, right? Mm-hmm. We saw 4 of the big 5. We did not see rhinos, not for a lack of effort. But they just escaped us. But we saw some incredible sightings. We had a sunrise hot air balloon ride over the Mara. Saw herds of zebra, saw lions, saw cheetahs. Just, really, really neat. And then had breakfast in the bush. So I won't go into too much more detail about that because I know that the hot air balloon is your number 1 here. But that's why I said I think that we approached it differently, is that I wasn't just doing days, but I was doing the Masai Mara is all one thing.
Yeah. So my number 1 moment is definitely the hot air balloon ride over the Masai Mara. We even debated doing that. We didn't even put a deposit down for that experience or pay for it until a month prior. And I'm so glad we did, because everyone I talked to that has done it said it was such a great experience that they would 100% recommend it and do it again. I am so glad we did it. We had the best time. It's early, so you get up, you watch the sunrise. We flew over a herd of zebra. We saw wildebeest. We saw a lion. We saw a leopard, elephants, giraffes. So much. We saw so much from the air, and it was just such a really cool perspective to be able to see that. And that is just, I think, definitely my top experience of the year. And then it was followed by the breakfast and everything, which was fun because it was in the middle of the bush, and we met some great people. And that was definitely really cool. Even in the videos that Chris is recording, I'm just like, this is so cool. This is so cool. Christopher, look at that. That is so cool the whole time. So definitely my number 1 experience of the year was the hot air balloon in the Masai Mara.
And my number one, as you called, was the gorilla trek in Bawindi Impenetrable Forest National Park. That has been a long time member of my bucket list. Excuse me, in my to-do list. And I was incredibly grateful that we got to have that experience, because I did not picture having that experience for probably like another 10 years. But yeah, I loved spending time with Mukiza family. I loved interacting with the little babies, because they were, they stole the show. They're climbing all over the place. They're beating
cute.
their little chests. They're wrestling with each other.
I still love there was this one baby hanging out on a branch, like a low branch, and he just leapt onto another baby, and like they both rolled down this hill together, and it was really funny.
Yes. And the other thing that I thought was really neat is that there was an infant that was less than 2 weeks old. That the infant's mother was nursing. And that was incredible too. Yeah, just such a tiny little baby gorilla. But to see, again, just like a deep emotional connection there was really, really special. You mentioned that you have some honorable mentions. How many do you have?
3, 4.
All right, chop it in half and go your top 2 honorable
no.
mentions. Otherwise, it's just a top 10 experience over there.
No, it's not. Some honorable mentions. You had mentioned it before, the chimp trek. That was really cool. Strasbourg at night. Oh my goodness, especially on a weeknight. Weekends are crazy, but weeknights, just watching all the lights in the old city and the markets are absolutely stunning. Our first day, or our second day, I don't know, the whole experience of wine tasting in Barolo and Barbaresco was just incredible. So, again, that's something you had already mentioned. And also going to the Cholla Cactus Garden for sunrise and Joshua Tree National Park. Such a great experience. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous sunrise over there, and it just looks like the cacti are glowing. So highly recommend that. What are your honorable mentions?
I actually don't have any written down, but one that I was toying with including, but that ended up getting beat out here, was the tour of the Roman Colosseum and the Roman Forum. I thought that was really, really neat. Just kind of like trying to picture it from a historical perspective, and obviously seeing Rome as it is now, but also recognizing that has been there for, just an unfathomable amount of time, right? Like it's hard to kind of think about all of that and think about everything that has happened since then and since the Roman Empire to present day, and yet there it is. Yeah. So that was also pretty cool. All right. Now we are into our top 5 most embarrassing moments. Yep. There were a few that I was like, okay, yeah, I remember that. But there were also a few that I really had to dig to think about. Like my 5th, 4th, and 3rd, I really had to think about our travel. So I'm kind of happy that it wasn't that embarrassing of a year for me.
I know 2020 was a big one, I think. Or not 2020, 2019 was a big year for embarrassing travel moments, particularly for myself, and particularly in Peru.
Yes.
So go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear all of those delightful things that I just did, because I am very clumsy, and yeah.
You get excited.
And I get excited.
Do you want to go 5th to 1st? Did you rank them that way?
I did.
Okay, let's start. Do you have honorable mentions?
I don't. Wow. Not as embarrassing of a year, surprisingly enough.
You know what? We're both maturing.
Maybe, yeah.
We're grown. I'll go first this time since you went first last time.
Yeah, go for it.
This was when we were in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And we were visiting Independence National Historical Park, which was a ton of fun. And I am standing in line for the Liberty Bell because it's a very long line. And you're like, hey, why don't you stand there and I'll go around and take some pictures because that way we can go grab lunch after. Perfect. Sounds good. Standing in the Liberty Bell line, and it moves a lot faster than expected.
Yes.
So I'm getting up to the front and I'm trying to flag you down, right? multiple times. You are not looking at me. So I get up to the front and the guy's like, just one? And I go, actually, there's two. She's over there. Yeah, I'll just get to the back of the line. And he goes, oh, okay. And I get to the back of the line. And then I'm still trying to flag you down. I'm calling you because
like I'm not looking at my phone.
You're not looking at your phone. So I'm edging up in line again, right? And again, I get to the front of the line and he like gives me a very puzzled look. And I go, I promise you that there is someone else as well. I was like, should I just get to the back of the line? And he gives me this look and he's like, yeah, sure. There's someone else. Just sure. So I get to the back of the line again. And now I'm like waving my hands trying to land a plane here to get your attention because you are far on the other side. And you just come up and you're like, oh my gosh, like this was like, I got a really good picture here. Why don't you look at this? And I'm like, what have you been doing? But this time we were able to go up. The guy gave me like an odd, like, did he just find someone look to cover up his tracks that there was a second person. But we ended up successfully making it into the exhibit to see the Liberty Bell, which was pretty freaking sweet. Nice.
It's good. My number 5 is the reason why I don't do hop-on, hop-off buses. Well, a big reason is just I like to walk around and wander and do all that stuff myself. But and the big reason is that I kind of have a knack for just falling asleep in moving vehicles. And
that is a talent of yours.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Remember when we were in Uganda and our guide...
Hold on. Just keep telling the story about the hop-on, hop-off bus.
Anyway, yeah, so my parents, it was our last day of the trip. I haven't been sleeping that well. But like, last day of our trip, we're in Frankfurt. My parents were like, you know what, let's do a hop-on, hop-off bus tour, just to see the sights. We really only have like a full day, other than seeing the Christmas markets the day before. And so we're doing that. I immediately fall asleep, and I slept through, I'd say, about 90% of the tour. And there were other people up there. I am not like a type of person that sleeps gracefully when I sleep sitting up.
That is very true.
So, just mouth hanging out open, just great. And this is why I don't do that, because I fall asleep all the time on transport. Unless if I'm like really paying attention and need to find out where my next stop is and stuff. Like public transport, I'm usually good, but like...
Did your parents not wake you up?
They were sitting in another seat and we have our headphones in, so I don't know. That or they were just like, whatever, she's tired. Like, I don't know. I don't know. They just let me sleep and I just passed out and woke up pretty much toward the end. So
awesome. Did you enjoy the tour?
From what I saw, I did. Yes.
My fourth most embarrassing moment also involves you falling asleep in vehicles. And that is the need to make constant excuses for you falling asleep throughout Africa. Yes, because they would, like, all of our drivers were so nice and they would be telling us about the area and like, oh, here's like the school, here's the hospital, here's like this river. And like, we would be stopped somewhere and like, they would pull over to the side of the road because they're like, oh yeah, you can see like, the people collecting the rocks there, like they'll like a whole thing.
Or there's an animal or something.
Right. Yeah. And Catherine is just asleep. And they would look back and they would be like, is she okay? And I was like, no, like she's fine. And like they were like, am I boring her? And I was like, nope, you're not boring her. This is just who she is. I was like, it's a moving vehicle. We had a lot of early mornings on that trip.
Oh my gosh, and jet lag. Just jet lag, early mornings. I get a little bit of insomnia these days thanks to some of my anxiety meds. So I don't sleep as well at night, and then I'm just tired, and then I will fall asleep on random transportations. Yes. Including there was one driver of ours, he was like so shocked because the roads are they're dirt roads, they're really bumpy, and I am just out. And honestly, it felt like a nice little like cradle rocking thing. And I was out and slept really well. And he was just like, I don't know what? How are you able to sleep like this?
It was very funny. And I was coming up with a lot of different creative excuses.
I'm very sorry. I just get like, I was just really tired.
I mean, you do the same thing on long car rides too. I'll be talking and then I'll realize that like you haven't responded for a bit, or I'll ask you a question and it's silent and I look over and it's just passed out.
Yeah.
What was your next one?
My next one was during our gorilla trek. And I was, I knew that I heard some bugs. I saw some bugs, and I was just like, I'll just spray a little extra like mosquito spray on me just in case. And our guide was like, don't do that. That attracts the wasps. And there aren't really that many mosquitoes in this sector of the park. But he was like, but definitely don't do that because that attracts the wasps. And lo and behold, of course, there was a nearby wasp nest. The wasps, they weren't there, so we didn't get chased down. But it was really embarrassing getting called out in the middle of the gorilla trek with a bunch of people around. And I was like, oops, I didn't know. So for those who are going to the Rhodesia sector, I put like bug repellent on as lotion beforehand, so that's a good idea. But maybe don't spray, off outdoors, stuff in the middle of it.
You are underselling this story as well.
It wasn't that bad.
He was in the middle of describing something.
I was listening to him. I was just
no,
trying
I know,
to like
but all
spray.
of a sudden you
I
hear
was in the back.
You hear like the aerosol, like the psh, and he goes, "Oh, ma'am," and you're looking, and you look over your shoulder behind, like, "I'm not, ma'am."
I didn't.
It was very funny.
Okay.
That plays well into my third one because, during gorilla trekking, we were at the back, and
we were at the front, and we were towards the back, and there was a slower person behind us.
Hold on, I'm getting there. No, there was a slower person in front of us. And this was, we got reprimanded on this portion of or on this portion of the trek because
this part was not our fault.
You are attracting wasps now, putting the whole group in danger.
I put it away the second he told me, and he was like, "Oh, it should be fine. Like, I don't see any around." And I felt really bad.
So he's saying this, and then he like has this look in his eyes, and he's like, "And another thing. Why don't we move you two up front here so that the pacing is even?" And
yeah.
I'm looking behind myself because I consider myself to be a pretty experienced runner, hiker, cardiovascular exerciser.
Us.
And
it wasn't us.
So
there was a slower person in front of us, and so we were slow because like she was in front of us, and it wasn't like a lot of space to navigate around her.
Which was fine.
Which was
right.
fine.
Like everyone's doing this, but he's like, "Yeah, you two up front."
Yeah, and then he calls us out, tells us to go up front, and in my head, I'm like, "It wasn't us. We're not holding the group up."
Yeah. Well, I pushed the pace then.
Okay.
Because I'm hot on his tail, and I'm like, "Oh, I think we lost some people. And I'm like, "Yeah. Here's what
you're like, I'll show you.
You're gonna learn today."
Okay.
But that was yeah. I just remember while I have your attention, the two of you,
yeah, get up front.
Get up to the front.
Got his eye on us.
What about you?
It was fine. We were fine. Everything was great.
Yeah, everything was fine.
But yeah,
like I said, I had to stretch for those first three.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your next one?
My third one was at the Christmas markets. As you guys know, I'm learning French. I do better. I'm getting better. I am getting better. But
this was a great story when you told me this.
So we were in, I think, Ricver, and it was very cold that day. That my parents, like my dad forgot his hat, and mom was cold, so they went to like a little hat stand, and they wanted to try on some hats. And I'm trying to say in French, like, can we try is it possible to try these on? And I was like I got hung up on the word to like, to
try on,
to put the hat on. And in my like English trying to say French, I don't know. I ended up almost calling, just the English version of the word put on, or like saying those two words, pretty quickly actually sounds like a very bad word in, French. So the lady was super nice. She just chuckled and she was like, "Do you mean to try on? Like, do you want to try on?" And I was like, "Yes." And oh my gosh, it was just so awkward because I almost called her a bad word in French. And luckily she knew that clearly I was not fluent and didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, so just be careful when you're speaking another language to just really mind what you say on accident.
Yeah. Well, last year I asked for the jacket.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
We're
but at
learning.
least you didn't almost call them a bad word.
That's true.
But she was very understanding. She obviously knew that I was like hung up on like trying to say can we try this on?
Yes.
And she was like, "It's okay, don't worry."
My number 2 was when I have never, knock on wood, had stomach issues while traveling ever.
That must be nice.
Until Uganda. And it was the day that we were leaving Uganda, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
It was the day we were flying all the way like across Lake Victoria to
Kenya.
To Kenya, to the Masai Mara.
And I woke up, well, it actually started the night before, but I was like, this is terrible. Mm-hmm. Like it was just awful. And luckily our guide was very nice. He took me to a pharmacy. I'm trying to explain what's going on. And I got a dewormer. I got a lot of activated charcoal tablets, and
I mean, it worked.
It worked. I felt much better, but that was not my favorite conversation to have with our guide, especially because that was like one of my last conversations with him.
You were sweating bullets though at the airport, and I was like,
"Oh yeah."
I was like, "You cannot get on this plane and risk having an accident or two."
Right. I can't, like, that was what I was really concerned about too.
Yeah.
Is like, imagine going through customs and I have an accident.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my number 2. What about yours?
All right. I think, well, the last 2 of mine are also just in Uganda. But my second one is the time that I was pretty jet lagged and I was just tired again. And also, because I didn't sleep well the night before. But here we are going around Queen Elizabeth National Park, and we saw the tree climbing lines. That was all cool. And then that evening, on our game drive, our guide kept being like, "Oh yeah, look, these are Ugandan cobs," and I kept calling them Cobes, Kobe's, Tobes, Cobes. I just like kept calling them all these different things because I don't know.
I think it's a Ugandan Kobe, and you kept calling it a Ugandan cab.
I think it's a Kobe, isn't it? Oh no. No, it is Ugandan cob. We just looked it up. We had to pause this to look it up. It's a cob.
But I do remember he would be like, "Look, there's some cob over there," and you'd be like,
or Ugandan Cobes. I kept being like, "Look at those Cobes. Look at those Kobe's," and like, because I kept getting Topi and Cobs
and you were
mixed up.
That it was so funny. You're like, "Oh, there's another herd of Tobe." And
yes. And like our guide was like, he was so nice. Like he would be like, "Oh yes, those are some Ugandan cobs." And like, I just didn't even really get it until we were eating dinner and you were like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, I'm not. I need to sleep." And after a good night's sleep that night, thankfully, I woke up the next day and was like, "Oh my gosh, what was I doing? I'm so sorry," to our guide. And he was like, "Oh no, it's fine."
It was pretty funny.
I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got that all cleared up, but that was really embarrassing that I just kept getting Topi and Cobs confused and calling them Kobe's and Tobes and Cobes and all sorts of different names during that whole time.
We're down to number 1.
Number 1, what is your most embarrassing moment?
Easily my most embarrassing moment. Like, I knew that this was number 1.
Okay.
As soon as I started thinking back. So I like to say that I will generally, I try to avoid conflict, I think is a fair assessment of who I am. I also try to not offend. So prior to going to, on our day trip to Barbaresco, our guide, who was very nice, asked, "Do you guys have like any dietary restrictions for lunch?" Me thinking that, okay, like he's just looking for some restaurants around and wants to make sure that like if there's anything that we would prefer, that they have an option for that. And I said, well, for me, I would prefer to eat vegetarian. Just preference. And no issues, because they even said, like, I mean, if you don't eat gluten, if you don't eat meat, what have you, like, let us know. So I was like, awesome, that's what I'll do. So I submit my request for a vegetarian lunch. And we are sitting down at our first wine tasting of the day. This was with the father and son duo that you were talking about earlier. And they have a huge plate of homemade sausages, homemade cheeses, that sort of thing. And I tried some of the cheeses and they were very good. And then one of them the son kept pointing to the sausage. And he was like, I made this. And I was like, oh my gosh, it looks really good. Like, that's cool. Like, kind of asking him how he made it, all that kind of stuff. And then our tour guide was like, you know that this is homemade, right? And I was like, yeah, he was just telling me about it. That is incredible. It really is. And he was like, you should try it. And I was like, oh, like, I mean, I've already been having so much of the cheese. I'm good. I thank you though. I don't want to spoil like my lunch. And he goes, oh, okay. And then it was just like, you should really try this. You should really try this. You should really try this. And I was like, finally, I was like, okay, look, it obviously means a lot because they made this homemade, right? And there's like 3 or 4 different people telling me I really need to try this. I really need to try this. So I say I am going to try it. And I am eating it. And all of a sudden, our tour guide goes, you're eating meat. And I was like, yeah, well, like, I mean, I was like, it's like everyone here wants me to try it. Like, I'm fine trying it. He goes, didn't you request a vegetarian lunch? And I said, I did. But like, that's fine. That'll be okay. And he was like, we're bringing you to our house for lunch. My wife has been so stressed about what third course for a vegetarian. And here you are eating meat. And I was like, oh my gosh, like now I feel terrible. I was like, if I had known that we were going over to your house, I would have just said, hey, like whatever you would like. I was like, I completely misunderstood. I'm so sorry. And then I'm like,
yeah,
because cursed sausage that
I
just ate.
Vegetarian for the most part, but like, yeah, but it's just on the road when we're traveling, we try the local things. And then also like if we're at someone's house and they're offering us that, we just eat whatever.
Yes.
And yeah, we had no idea we were going to
I felt
their home
so
for lunch.
Bad.
And he called his wife and she could tell she was not happy that you had eaten meat. And then she was like all the stress to make you a separate course. Just for you.
I felt so bad. I apologized to her when we were at the house, and she was chuckling. She was like, "No, it's fine." Like I knew what to like. I was more worried that like you would leave hungry, like, and I was like, "No. There was zero risk of that." Like I just had like a 5-course lunch in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
The food was delicious, but I think I'm just going to, despite how we kind of approach it at home, I think I'm just going to approach it very differently abroad from now on. Mm-hmm. And that way,
so if we do get invited to someone's house,
yes,
we would get re-invited.
That way, well, that way I do not have to relive an embarrassing moment. What was your top one? I'm trying to. Oh, I have it in my head, but
again,
I don't know. Is it in Uganda?
It's in Uganda.
Is it in Bawindi?
It is in Bawindi.
Yes, I do remember this.
We get there, and I don't know what I thought I was hearing. I mean, this is our second day, okay? Like, I can't blame jet lag for the entire trip. I understand that. But this was our second day of the trip when we get to Mahogany Springs. And we get to Mahogany Springs and it's like late afternoon. I was like, you know what? I'm going to have a drink. And so we're going up there. You got like a beer or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I will have a Chenin Blanc because I know that they serve a lot of South African wines in Uganda. It's easy to get from there. So I know Chenin Blanc is big. So I was like, oh, they'll probably have that, So I'm just like, oh, I'll take a Chenin Blanc. And the guy behind the bar was like, oh no, like we have like Sauvignon Blanc and like
Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc.
All this stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll take a Chenin Blanc. I don't know why. I just thought I heard him say we have Chenin Blanc. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll take a Chenin Blanc. And he's like, we don't have Chenin Blanc. We have Chardonnay, that and that. I don't know why, but I did that again where I was like, yeah, I'll have Chenin Blanc. And he was like, we don't have that eventually. And I was like, oh my gosh. And you guys, I think it was even more embarrassing because Christopher made a huge deal of it.
This was really funny. Like every day when we would go to dinner, he would come around and he'd be like, what can I get you guys to drink? And I was like, just a glass of Chenin Blanc if you have it.
Yeah, Christopher kept making a big thing. Because eventually I was like, oh, sorry, I'll take a Sauvignon Blanc, not a Chenin Blanc.
The two of us were cracking up, though, constantly about this. Like, there was a time that you got a...
Can I just say in my defense, the second time when he was like, we don't have Chenin Blanc, I meant to say Sauvignon Blanc. That's what they did have. But in my brain was just like Chenin Blanc. And so this guy was very confused. Like, what is this lady on? What does she keep requesting? This wine we don't have. It was really embarrassing. But it took like 3 or 4 times before I finally was like, Sauvignon Blanc. I am so sorry. I don't know what's going on with my brain and words and mouth today.
It was so funny. Like, I remember our last dinner too. We were walking around and we get to the dining area and we go out on the deck, or like we're rounding the bar to go out on the deck, and he goes, hold on, wait, Chenin Blanc. And he looks, and I high-fived him.
This was like an ongoing joke between you guys the rest of the time we were in Mahogany Springs. And I was like, oh my gosh.
When we left, he gave me the little, like the feedback form, like what was your favorite food, like all of that kind of stuff. And under like, would you return? I said, yes, if you have Chenin Blanc, and I gave it to him, and he started cracking up again.
You guys.
It was pretty funny.
Like got roasted every single time.
It was pretty funny. That is not the one that I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to talk about a mishap on the gorilla trek.
Oh, when I slipped in gorilla poop and couldn't get up and needed help. That that might be. That is up there. That is up there. And I struggled to get up because the vines were all slippery and had to have a hand or two get me up. It was great. It was wonderful.
This was a great year.
It was.
Looking back on experiences, embarrassing moments.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at my top 5 in each, like this was, I am incredibly grateful for everything that we experienced this year. 2023, you have big shoes to fill.
It does.
Big shoes to fill.
It does.
But yeah. That's
our top travel memories and embarrassing moments of 2022.
Now to jump into food and drink in episode 200.
Yes, and you guys let us know your top travel memories and embarrassing moments so we don't feel as embarrassed about our travels this year. That would be great. You can always reach us on Twitter at WWHoneymoon, Instagram at Worldwide Honeymoon, or email kat@worldwidehoneymoon.com. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.